Welcome to the Two Aces, One Game podcast powered by Onflow Media. I'm your host, Alex Sivkarovsky, and joining me once again is Alex Stojanovsky. Welcome, Stoj.
Thank you for having me again, Art. It's good to see you and another amazing week of football and upsets, I guess.
It is indeed. And firstly, we want to start things off by thanking our sponsors, St. Domain Barbers at 15 Yarra Place in South Melbourne. Make sure you book your next hair appointment and let them know you're a friend of the podcast, and I'm sure they'll look after you. Like you mentioned, Dutz, it's another massive round of football, upsets, sackings, but let's start off with the sackings. It was time to go, and Green Gully pulled the trigger and have announced this. They haven't announced it yet. We did get word from Mark Ivkovic, football commentator, and the transfer guru, who announced it the other day that they have sacked David Chick. Who would have thought that would be coming? That's not me, not you. We've only been calling for it since I think round 3 or 4, but eventually they pulled the trigger and they sacked him. But they have kept on everybody else. So the likes of Craig Filer and Jono Clemente are still there. From what I've heard, they said that the assistants are there. So if we're wrong, let us know in the comments. But David Chick has been given his marching orders, and right call, wrong call. What do you think, Guts?
Look, to be honest, there's probably one sound that probably sums up the start of Gully season, Arts. Just a complete fail, and the good and the positive thing that we will say, Arts, between the two of us, we know there's a long season to go still. And there's other clubs struggling at the moment that's saving Gullies. And it's probably one thing that is keeping them afloat at this stage. And they've got some big games coming up too, I'd say, and that's between the clubs that are in the bottom of the table. So if they can pinch those results, they might just get out of this situation. There's a bit of a sticky one at the moment. David Chick, I think that's probably the right decision. I thought losing to half of the under 23 squad of South Melbourne would have been that time. I would have probably pulled the pin at that point, Arts, if I'm being honest. Losing to South Melbourne seconds pretty much is enough to tell me that's enough, or I've seen enough at least. And I think everyone's seen the Arteta, hands situation. I have a bit of my own of what I would like to show the viewers at home as well. But if we can get that graphic up, would be nice. But look, at the end of the day, results speak basically everything in football. And if you're not getting results, that's the bottom line. And then the decisions have to be made.
Yep, their last win came on the 4th of July in round 21. It was a 4-1 win over Melbourne Victory. So 4th of July, really long time in football. We're in March now.
Almost a year, in a few months,
8 months without a win. I mean, give or take, where they did have off season doesn't count. But look, it couldn't have started any worse. They lost 4-0 to Bentley Greens. I would have to go through the record books to see last time when Bentley scored 4 goals. We'll have to go back a number of years. But it started off with Scott Hillier. We've probably a bit unlucky he didn't get the goal of the week, to be honest. It was an absolute long-range bomb that went in. And then, again, Maki Petratos. And then Scott Hillier again. He scored a double. And then, unfortunately, Cooper Head scored an own goal. If you look back, it was quite a good goal, but unfortunately, it was an own goal. And in the end, 4-0, and I think pretty much the writing was on the wall. So interesting. But who do they pick as a coach now? Who would want to take over this job that is at the moment doesn't have many prospects that I've come across? I did put up a post on my Instagram and also on my YouTube. Check it out and subscribe and help your boy get to 100 followers on YouTube. But I put it up, not many names. A lot of people from the lower divisions, no disrespect, but that's what I was given. But if you were the president of Green Gully, who would you target right now at this moment to get this club out of pretty much the dungeon?
Look, it's at this point, it's probably a much of a much, to be fair, because you talk about these other clubs like Magic and stuff, and you almost think of what manager can you bring to the club that can make a change. But the main thing you need to focus on is, do they have the resources, the players on the field that can actually turn this club around? So that's my biggest concern. That finding someone that can bring leadership into the squad, someone that who's going to gear the boys up every week, and they're going to fight for everything, not just from midfield, defending, strikers positions, but like even on the training field. There needs to be a big change there, and I guess you can throw a couple of names in the hats, but I think that whichever name gets plucked from the hat, there's a lot of work to be done, and it's
Give
going
us
to.
a name. Give us a name. You're fluffing around. You're giving
I'm
us
not. I'm not
a
going to give you a name,
politician's
Art.
answer. You're giving us a
I'm not going to give
politician's
one.
answer. I want a name. You're giving me a politician's answer. I don't want that. You're fluffing around. Drop a name who you think should be coaching.
How about I flip it on you, Art? You ask me all these questions. What about you? You tell me what you think should be, or who do you think's in line for the job at least?
There was one name that didn't get a lot of people were saying, but Rick Marchioli. I know he's assistant in Thailand.
Hmm.
Sorry, the Philippines women's national team with Mark Torcaso. His name should be mentioned. I think he took over at Bentley and probably didn't get enough time. I felt. It's very similar position, although Green Gullies is still in the top division. When you've got Bentley, they were in VPL1 at that stage. But Rick Marchioli is one. You got John Markowski. He took Magic, who have bare bones to the finals. Could he do something with that squad? I don't think so, because they have no forwards really. They've got nothing. You're going to have to look at VPL1, VPL2 coaches who, do they want to leave for a Green Gully? That's another question. So not many names. Look, if you did this at the start of the season, look, there was quite a few names that you would have had. I would have had Nick Marinos from Manningham. I would have picked him. He was a great coach at Port Melbourne. Fortunately didn't work out there. There's not many people that want to put their hand up. So it's going to be a tough gig for someone to take, because literally you're picking up the pieces of a side that's injury. At the moment, they've got a lot of injuries, no confidence at the bottom. Can't get any worse. Well, it can. You can get relegated, but you've still got, a long way to go. You pretty much have to pick up at least 6 to 7 wins from now until the end of the season. We're at round 7. So another 7 gets you to round 14, and you got 12 games to salvage something. And depending on how many points you pick up from now to the next 7 games, it's going to be a massive, massive task. So, look, I don't know who it is. And, for those watching at home, let us know in the comments below who you think it should be coach. A name that that was mentioned to me that we both know well, Sofiane Soufi. I'm not sure how that would translate from futsal to coaching. He does coach. I know he coaches his kids at Strathmore, but stepping up to the big leagues, it's a totally different ask. Yeah, I don't know who can they possibly ask to coach. They mentioned Esteban Quintas. Last I heard, it was in Morocco, running a family business. I mean, why would you want to come back to Melbourne during winter when you can enjoy the Moroccan summer over there? Yeah, a lot of people will be looking at this one and really maybe not touching it.
Yeah, that's probably one thing that a lot of people would have probably considered as well. But you know, you got to unravel all the, I guess unpack everything that there is at the club to do, and there's a lot of work there. So, and the thing is, like, even just to escape relegation, maybe, or we'll talk. A lot of people predicted them to be in the top 6 or around there, and now now they're looking at escaping the relegation dogfight. So regardless of whatever happens now, it's going to be a scrap, and each week for Green Gully now is going to be do or die. Their mentality reset will need to be there. They will need to consider a lot of things, Arts, and we talk about potentially trying to look at getting players down, and well, you can't do that now too because you have to wait till mid-year, and by then it
Pretty much
could
the
be
last
too late.
7 game. Yeah, your
Yeah,
last
which
7
could be too
games,
late.
and
Art.
yeah, it's gonna be a tough ask. I mean, even if you get to the point where you've got enough points, you're still asking players to come from wherever that maybe players from the bottom, the bottom leagues. But then you got to look at it. If you're in the top two, let's say, if you look at VPL1, and we won't talk about this too much longer. I know we're taking up some time, but if you're in VPL1, if you're in the top two and you're clearly ahead, why would you want to move to those clubs? So, say for example, your Northcotes, your Melbourne Knights, and so on, and your Brunswick
Could be
Juventus.
Melbourne, Serbia, even Chich. Could
Even
even be
Melbourne,
Melbourne,
whoever,
Serbia.
right?
Yeah.
So if you're in the top two, your automatic promotions, why would you want to even go to a Green Gully? If you're like in that 7th to 8th, you're missing out by a point or two, you might want to look to go to Green Gully. But those in the, from 4th to 6th, from 3rd to 6th, you got playoffs. You can actually make the playoff, and you just need to win 2 games. And it's different. So look, it's going to have to be someone with a lot of experience. I don't know how many of those people are around and willing to take on the job. But look, it might be just for the meantime, Craig Filer and Jono Clemente. I know Jono previously coached the Heidelberg Women's. He's coached the Melbourne Victory Women's. He does. He's a real young coach. Maybe it's time for someone to come in and really implement his ideas. To a new club and go from there. But yeah, testing times for a side that hasn't made finals for maybe 4 or 5 years. And look, they at this rate, they might not be making finals for another year. They might even get relegated for the first time in a long time. So yeah, interesting. But look, we'll move on. We've got plenty of other games to go through, and also VPL1. Second game, Dandenong City and Hume City. What an entertaining game. 1-1. Josh Bingham scoring at the death to make it 1-1. He scored in the 92nd minute. In a typical Josh Bingham style, just a good striker, experience, gets in the right position. But it didn't start all that well with Jamie Latham scoring a beautiful goal to make it 1-1. So sharing the points for Dandy City. So not 3 points, Uts, but more importantly, they got a point, which sort of helps them just a little bit to get out of. They're still in that relegation battle. They sit in 13th place on 2 points, but nevertheless, an okay performance from Dandy City.
I think you look at that game from a Dandy City perspective, and you got to be disappointed, especially leading that game with a few minutes left. Conceding that late, Arts, you always got to be disappointed, and you always see that as 2 points dropped rather than 1 point gained. I always see it like that, especially when you're leading the game going into the last moments of it. And if you're Hume City, and if you look at the table, that's which we will cover later, Hume City were the only team to pick up points who were on the upper part of the table, though. So for them, they'll be happy. They get a point, they escape something which they probably won't. I would say they probably would have gone to that game at Frank Houlihan Soccer Complex and thought, we can go there. We can actually cause a few headaches against Dandy City. We've got the form. The players are doing well. And even into the next few weeks, you think Hume City will still cause a lot of troubles to the teams they are going to come up against. But it's just, structurally, I think Hume City are doing really well. But the thing that, sets them apart from the rest is their ability to break teams open. And they've done it in every game almost this season to be able to find a goal in any passage of play too, Arts, whether it's a set play, whether it's coming down the either the left or right hand side and putting those crosses into dangerous areas. And I've been very impressed with how Hume City have reacted after their poor start to the season to actually display this type of football. So fair credit to the coaching staff there at Hume City, and it would be great to see them continue pushing it and finish top 6, Arts. I think that's what they'll be looking for.
Probably disappointed they got the draw, to be honest. I mean, I'm looking at the biggest grand scheme of things. They were probably the more favourite of the two sides. They were in form. A win could have got them top of the table, which, at the start of the season, I don't think many people would have predicted. But They scored a late equaliser to make it 1-1, so they'll probably be 50-50 happy they got a point, but probably more disappointed they should have won that game. But nevertheless, they picked up points, still going along. And moving to the next game, Oakley Cannons versus George Cross. Oakley winning 2-1 and giving George Cross their first loss for the season. This game, last week, we were praising Christian Siciliano. This week, we're actually going to have to give him a little bit of stick because that second goal was absolutely poor. From a keeper's perspective, I don't know whether he had butter arms, but you've got to punch that ball like it's got, owes you money. It was a poor attempt at a clearance, and in the end, it's cost them a result. First, Kingsley Sinclair scoring in 18th minute. Again, a jammy goal, poor back pass, put Morgan Fowler under the pump, and then that way they scored. Liam Mars has scored a brilliant goal, cuts back into his left, a la Ayan Robin. Brilliant goal. Probably be stiff not to get goal of the week as well. But then again, a couple of changes from Georges, and I think it changed the tempo of the game a little bit. And I think Georges played better when they made those changes. They look more attacking and free flowing rather than their sort of defensive setup they've had over the last couple of weeks. So that will give Eric Vasiliadis a lot of confidence that his players, despite maybe they don't have the fire potential up front, are still an attacking threat. But again, it comes back to moments in the game. We keep saying Adam Juratovic, he came on and he scored I think in the 79th minute. But really, he shouldn't have scored that goal. That should have been a clearance. And it would have been another point on the road for Georges. But this is the lessons they need to learn. And, sometimes you need to learn those hard lessons. And it gives you a good kick up the bum. It's been a tough road trip for them. Dandy City, Preston and Oakley, and now they're back home this week against St Albans. So again, they should be happy with that, but disappointed in another sense because they could have got a draw at least. But Oakley, again, just doing the right things at the right time.
Yeah, solid performance for the Cannons. At home, always know they're going to score goals up. They create those opportunities, and they have the players out there to do damage. I'm just looking at the team of the week, and I saw Diaz, and I've always been the big fan of listing Diaz from the Cannons. Just the capability of what he can do, not just from goals, but to influence the attack in phases where you think that, defensively you can be really well structured, but he can just find those little pockets in behind us. And it's one of those ones as a defender, you really get put in situations you wish you probably don't want to be in. But look, overall, from a George's perspective, you look at that and yeah, you'll be disappointed. But it's a reality check ups as well. You're undefeated for how long? What was it? 6 games into 5 games gone
Yeah.
the 6th round, sorry. And the positive sign is that's what you mentioned is like the changes that came in actually made an effect in the game. From a management point of view, look at that and you think, okay, this is good because we can potentially roll those players into the next game, or we can use that mindset knowing that if we need to make a change, there's that punt that you've done in the previous game can pay off in this game too. And that's the good thing from a coaching perspective. You roll the dice. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if you don't roll it, odds you don't know, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and these are the things that Eric Vasiliadis has learned over time being in the Georges role. And I'm sure he's done it previously in other roles too. But I feel like they've got the right man for the job at Caroline Springs, George Cross. And I do feel like this weekend he'll get the result for him against Dinamo.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, they tend to start slow. You look back, I think the first year they were up in VPL1,
Yeah.
started off really slow. Every year they sort of tend to start slow and then they pick up the pace, and then mid-season they do some great transfer work. So for them, I think the target is try to stay clear, in the top 6, top 7, up until that transfer window, and pick up, a striker or 2 or some attacking players. Hopefully injuries don't play a part, but then if they can, they'll definitely be a team to watch out for because once they get going, they're very hard to stop. But again, like you mentioned, good lesson learned. They'll put it behind them. They know their next target is coming up, and that's where they'll focus. All right, move along to the Zoki Markovsky derby. It was an entertaining game, Preston winning 2-1, but that wasn't as easy as they probably thought it was. I thought Avondale played quite well. They pretty much tried to muscle them in the first 45 minutes, which I think rattled the Preston a little bit. Not a lot of motions as such. We're expecting fireworks and a lot of flare ups, but there wasn't too many. But in the end, Preston just had that a little bit extra when Stefan Zini and Kian Cuba scoring against their former side, and then obviously Bruno Fronarelli scoring from the penalty in the 87th minute to make it 2-1. But good win for Preston against former coaches and former players. But yeah, how did you see this one?
Yeah, I think if you're looking at it from I guess from just a general perspective, it was a good game. There was plenty of opportunities for both sides to get on the score sheet. Look, you probably look at that game as well, Arts, and Zinni scoring against his former club. Those are the games you kind of relish as a player. I personally know what it's like to play against a former team that you played for, and you're just raring to get on the field and just perform and try and impact the game as much as you can. And that's great to see from a Preston Lions perspective because Cuba, Zinni, you couldn't ask much more from them. They popped up when they needed to, and Preston Lions probably didn't play at their best Arts on that night. I don't think they were at their free-flowing best, but they were able to get the win, and that's probably the most important thing as when you're in these leagues, Arts. When you're in NPL Victoria, and if you're not playing at your free-flowing best, but you're still able to get 3 points, especially against an Avondale side who, might I add, were on a good run themselves.
Yeah, 3 games in a row they won.
So they've come around from losing the first couple games, or the first 2 games, Arts, to winning 3 in a row. That's a great win for the Preston Lions Football Club, and it starts to push them up.
It's Dandenong Thunder and South Melbourne now. Ready? 3, 2, 1. All right, the next game is Dandenong Thunder versus South Melbourne. Dandenong Thunder coming up with a 3-0 win, thanks to goals from Hassan Jallo, Jackson Courtney Perkins, and to wrap things up was Ali Suleimani. So a much important needed win there for Dandenong Thunder, regardless of who was playing for South Melbourne Uts. It's finally they get the 3 points they were desperately looking for.
Yeah, it was a convincing win in the end, Art. So I did get a chance to watch back that game, and Adam Piddick and his men looked really comfortable at times in that match, and they just proved to be too strong against the South Melbourne opponents that were on the night. Unfortunately, not good enough.
Been a tough week for South Melbourne. They had a draw and I think a loss in the OFC and then a loss against Stanley Thunder, but still second on the table. They can't afford to drop any more points, especially leading up to the next phase of the OFC. So they really need to pick up maximum points each game going forward. But look, Thunder, could that be the game that sort of kicks things off for them and starts to go forward? Or do you think it was just they played South Melbourne at the right time?
Probably a bit of both, odds, if I'm being honest. So obviously, if you're going to play South Melbourne at any time, it would be at a time where they've got a stacked amount of fixtures and they're having to rotate into some under 23 players. But also, I think it's just the phases of play that Dandenong created in front of their home fans. It was a positive one. I think that they took their chances. They're playing positive football, in my opinion, at least from what I was watching. But just it's always good to just get off the winning mark, Arts. I think just once you get off that, you clear the slate clean there. It's like, okay, we've got the win now. We can build up on it. And it doesn't matter who you verse. I think now it's like they can go into the next game thinking that they can beat any side. And that's what I think the NPL Victoria men's, competition should be. Every team should be able to go into that game thinking they can beat any team. But the main thing for now for Dandy Thunder is they consolidate this form, Uts, and in the next few weeks now you'd like to see them at least pick up, if not a win, a draw or 3 points, just to continue following up on that win against South. From a South Melbourne perspective, again, Uts, their second loss of the season and the loss that they probably would have expected to come sooner rather than later because of, how many games they've had to play and the fixtures they've come across. But this time round, we didn't see the South Melbourne coach leave at the 70th minute or 80th minute mark to take a flight to the Solomon Islands. So
Yeah.
a little bit different this time.
I'm
but
sure he would like to sleep in his own bed, but that's after 3 wins, South they finally lose one. Now it's like you said, it's about getting maximum points as it is for Dandy Thunder. So a good win for the Thunder and Adam Pittick. They survive another week. Can they back it up again? Next game, which we probably predicted a bloodbath. It was Melbourne City 1, Altona Magic 1. Another good start for, well, I wouldn't say good start. I was actually disappointed in
no,
refereeing in this game. That wasn't a red card in my books. When a player pushes you and the ball hits your hand, it wasn't like he was reaching for it. You can clearly see he was pushed in, like it was smart play from the City player, very smart, but he clearly pushed him and the ball hits his hand. I'm not sure what else Garang Aru could do. Yellow at best. At best was a yellow. It was not a red card. I think that was disappointing, but they don't have VAR. But John McBock scored, right on the stroke of halftime, and you thought, okay, maybe Magic can hold on here. For them, unfortunately, they sort of did. It was Christian Polisides scoring in 87th minute to earn them a draw, but an important draw after 4 straight losses. I think the Magic, if you said to him at the start of the game, you're going to earn a point, you're also going to get a red card, they would have said, oh, we'll take, 1 point every day of the week. But again, good result for the Magic. Melbourne City probably disappointed they didn't take advantage of the 10 men. And maybe we're expecting, maybe the last week's result was probably not the result that really, it was a good result. They got the 5, but they probably thought, oh, we'll back it up again this week. Unfortunately, Goran Lozanowski just far too tactical and used his nous and, bunkered down when he needed to and hit him on the counter, and they got the result. They got a point in the end.
he also probably listened to the podcast, Uts, and he probably got sick of you saying how they've got no chance every single week. You saw there was going to be a bloodbath. The only blood we saw was the red card to Arel. So, unfortunately, the red there was a bit.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
it was probably stiff, Uts.
If a referee can explain it to me, I'm more than happy to listen. But you clearly see him getting pushed. I'm not sure what else he could have done. But again, it's the referee's made the decision. We'll leave it at that. If the referee wants to let us know, great, drop us a comment. But let us know your thoughts online too. If you think that was a red card, I definitely didn't think. But look, the Magic get the point. City probably be disappointed, but
It would be, yeah.
yeah, nothing more
Honestly,
to say about that.
there isn't a lot, but it would be nice to play back, the clip, and so people can see it themselves. It was an unfortunate red card, I think, as well. But look, John Mabok got into the team of the week with that goal, Uts, and it's a funny one with how this league works because we were saying or were predicting Melbourne City would win, and Magic went there, and not even the fact that they did it with 11 players, they did it with 10 Uts. So there you go.
Well, look, it's they've got a big game coming up. The Magic, if they can get another win underneath their belts, that definitely release the pressure. And moving on to the final game of the round, which is I did this one on a cherry picker. So that was luckily for us, it was a nice, beautiful, sunny day, and it wasn't a windy day. St Albans Saints 2 and Heidelberg United 1. This was a very good game. If I told you Heidelberg was on top and Dinamo was down in the bottom, if you were watching this game, you would have thought St Albans were on top and Heidelberg were at the bottom because St Albans played them, I wouldn't say off the park, but played so much better than Heidelberg. I mean, I know Heidelberg got first goal from Asahi Yokokawa, but St Albans, I thought were really unlucky not to be a couple of goals up. Look, as the case, Heidelberg could have had maybe 1 or 2 goals, but St Albans played so well, especially after last week's 5-0 drubbing. For the fact of them to turn up and really put Heidelberg to the sword, like the result doesn't reflect. I thought maybe Dinamo probably could have got a 3rd or 4th goal, but they were such a different side from last week. You would have thought, what happened in the space of 7 days? And can Cam Watson replicate that? Because they were just so much better. Like, you look at the goals, I know Michael Martinovic, look, I don't know what Yaron Souza was thinking. It wasn't a particularly windy day, maybe just lost sight in the sun because the sun was coming behind us and maybe just lost sight of it. But again, and the second goal, Mikael Platt, Yaron Souza just puts it, straight down the guts. Anthony Laban just plays it into Mikael Platt, and Mikael Platt just roofs that one in the back of the net, and they win 2-1.
They
So
do. They do.
big
But my,
result.
my question to you, Arts, was: do you think there was a bit of Benny Hills with the goalkeeping?
For who though? For Heidelberg or Yaron
Well, yeah,
Souza?
I'd say for Souza, yeah.
I noticed something really different in this game. He wasn't kicking the ball, um, only when he had to. Like the kick-ins from the keeper, he would play it in like a little roll and then let his centre backs, his centre backs kick it long. He didn't kick like long. He maybe made it 3 or 4 during the game. So I don't know whether it's an injury or maybe it's just a little bit of a twing or something like that. But I noticed he wasn't kicking long. And that's something that, really caught my eye, and maybe, maybe it's just precautions or I don't know what it was,
Possibly.
but yeah, he was not kicking it long. He maybe kicked 3 or 4, maybe just underneath the halfway line. Maybe that's why that second goal from Mikael Platt happened. Just probably didn't have enough confidence in his body. I don't know. It might have been just me overanalyzing, but he just did not do a lot of kickings, whereas Christian Rossi was. So the tale of the two there. So yeah, good win for St Albans. Cam Watson, I think, will be happy with that. 2 wins in the last couple of games. That'll do wonders. Heidelberg, another, really a loss they probably didn't need to have. I know it's, saying it's arrogant for me to say, but against St Albans and Dandy City, you think they should put them away. And the fact they've lost, 2 in the last, 5 games, they've lost 2. And their wins were 1-0 against Danny Thunder, 1-0 against Preston, and 3-2 against Oakley. And Oakley came back in the last 10 minutes as well. So
I tend to disagree, Arts, because I think that teams need to come in with a mentality shift, because we talk about teams like St Albans when they play at their home patch, similar to like what we talk about in the VPL1 with Langwarren. We know they're not a flashy side, but when they play at their own home patch, because it is a little bit more different to how other teams play at their home grounds. Arts, the ground's a little bit different in that aspect,
they
but
weren't playing on the main pitch though. They were playing on pitch 3, which by looking at it, it does look a little bit maybe longer or just a little bit wider. Yeah.
potentially, yeah. I mean, I still think that narrative probably needs to be changed. I think, and I don't think clubs will be looking at each game. I think they will probably assess it week by week as well. I guess you got to look at who's in the squad, who's available,
Yeah.
and then you want to look at your strengths and weaknesses. I definitely think that at the end of the day, Heidelberg probably had enough to get something out of that game.
Yeah.
I look at that from
Absolutely.
perspective, and they're winning 1-0 Arts. And if you look at the statistics, they had 10 corners.
Yeah.
Maybe is it something they have to go and work on? Maybe it's the corner taking Arts. Maybe they need to work on better drilled corners, because like having 10 corners in a game, that's a very big advantage against another club, And
Yeah.
if you're obviously I'm not going to compare it to an Arsenal, because they how drilled they
I
are
was
with.
going to say that Arsenal will be like licking their lips at 10 corners. So
That's like a penalty for them, us. But yeah, no. Look, you got to look at those statistics, and you got to think, how can we improve on that in the next match? Because I think they had double the amount of shots as on goal, not on target, but on goal at least, over St Albans Dinamo. So definitely from that perspective, but if I'm looking from a coaching or management area, I would be focusing on that in this kind of weeks of trainings to try and drill on and just make it more consistent and to get better outcomes, So
yeah.
that's
But
what I'd be looking at.
When they had the loss against Dandy City, it was a loss we needed to have to reset. Unfortunately, a couple of games later, they've had another loss. So, look, might be just a small little bump in the road, but you don't want to have too many bumps in the road. They still sit on top on goal difference, which we'll go through the ladder. Heidelberg for they played 6, won 4, 2 losses on 12 points. South Melbourne second, 4 wins, 2 losses on 12 points. Hume, 3 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss on 11 points. Bentley Greens up in 4th spot. I don't think many people would have predicted that. 3 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses on 10 points. Oakley Cannons the same. Only goal difference separates them. Who would have thought Bentley would have a better goal difference than Oakley Cannons at this stage of the season? But look, we're a long way to go. Melbourne City, 2 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss on 9 points. Avondale, 3 wins, no draws, 3 losses on 9. Caroline Springs, 2 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss on 9 points. Preston Lions, 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss on 7 points. They do have that 6-point deduction. St Albans in 10th place, 2 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses on 7, but they have a negative 8 goal difference, so that's really going to hurt them. Dandy Thunder, 1 win, 1 draw, 4 losses, 4 points. Tona Magic, 1 win, 1 draw as well on 4 points. Dandy City, 1 win, 3 draws, 2 losses on 2 points. They did have that negative 4-point head start. Green Gully, no wins, 1 draw, 5 losses, negative 13, 1 point. So for them to get in the top 6, they're 8 points off. Easier said than done. It's 3 games. Could they win 3 games? Absolutely. Could they lose 3 games? 100%. So, no, yeah,
Well,
you know.
when you say it like that, the odds are probably stacked against Gully at the moment based on form. But you're right. Yeah, it's definitely one. It's one you look at that and you just think Gully are probably one of those ones. Everyone's probably licking their lips ready to play Green Gully. I think this is what's happening now.
Well, we'll go over the next week's games, obviously, after a review. VPL1, the Chaos League, it brings us chaos every single week. You don't know what you're going to get with this league. It's one of the best leagues outside NPL Victoria that you watch. I'd rather watch this than the A-League sometimes. But in the Brunswick Derby, Brunswick City were hosting Brunswick Juventus, and it was Brunswick Juventus giving Brunswick City a good old slapping, 3-0. Nicholas Simioy, the captain, scoring, and then Robert Katachenko in the 82nd minute, and Austin Janina in the 90th minute scoring to make it 3-0. That's a big result for Brunswick Juventus away to Brunswick City. Yeah, tell us your thoughts about that one.
Yeah, look, it's the Chaos League for a reason. It's plenty of tops and turvy results, and I think this game probably represents it perfectly. I mean, we're into 6 rounds into the season now, and all I can think about is who's going to scalp another upset in that league, because it's tough to predict. But if you want to, I mean, if you want to speak specifically about those clubs, it's disappointing from Brunswick, but Juventus at least did well. I thought they were very strong, but look, still early in the season. It's hard to say. Like I watch back those games, some of the games, or if I go to the tender games, I look at them and I find it hard to see consistency. Sometimes, maybe with the top teams, you can see a little bit more consistency, but you just don't know what to predict or what to expect. So look positive for Brunswick, Juve. I did predict Juve to win Uts, and I think out of the two sides, defensively, I think Juve are a little bit better than City, and that definitely shows in their record. But yeah, look, Chaos League for a reason. We enjoy it, we love it, and all I can't wait for is another night's result from the Chaos League, because you just don't know what to expect, really.
Yeah, I mean, look, Brunswick City are definitely one of those sides. I think they've under-delivered over the last couple of years, to be honest. I think last year they probably should have done better. I know they went to, I think it was penalties against Melbourne City. They could have been playing NPL football, probably could have kept a lot of those players that did leave. I know Arte Ibrahim left, and he's been instrumental in that defense. And now looking back at it, geez, they would love to have him back. But look, hey, that's the crucialness of getting promoted. If you don't get promoted, you're going to lose players, and that's unfortunately what happens for them. Like you said, good win for Brunswick Juventus. They move on and keep pushing along, and it's another win for them. Back-to-back wins. Moving on to the next game, Alton Redbacks against Langwarrin. We predicted I think it was a big win for Alton, but look, they started off pretty slow when Alan Webb scored in the 22nd minute. Unfortunately for them, Brenton Kindler scored an own goal and Eltham were back in it. And then Eltham scored via Finn Diamond in the 88th minute. And the player that did score the own goal got red carded in the 90th minute. So a day to forget for Brenton Kindler. But yeah, look, Langwarrin, maybe this is the season they go down. They haven't had too much positives so far. I think the only win came when they beat Melbourne Serbia 3-1. That was about it.
Yeah, it's been a tough season for them thus far. I think they had some disciplinary issues in other games, which kind of put them on the back foot, I'd say. So they started well. They've been able to find themselves pretty much in games, but it's kind of the same old story. I mean, not in this game, at least they didn't get an early red, but I mean, having a sending off right at the end, that doesn't help. I guess you just keep looking and thinking, like, who's going to be available for the next game? I mean, they want to have depth. They want to have their best team and their best foot forward going into each match. And, to concede in the 88th minute against Alpha Redbacks, you'd be very disappointed. But I just want to give a quick shout out to the Eltham Redbacks Football Club. I don't know if you saw it, but there's an announcement made that Marco Rojas also being a part of the boys program there, the juniors program.
Yeah, good
Um,
result. I think plenty of experience. That'll do wonders for that club. They're already on a high with multiple promotions, which is good. But good on him for giving back to the local clubs. I think everyone around that area really get behind Eltham. It's important that we get behind local clubs and ensure that their survival and get funding because a report came out midweek. It was 10-1 funding. Like AFL gets 10 times the amount of funding we do, which is an absolute joke, considering the amount of money they bring in, and yet we're the most participated sport, and we're getting, a tenth of that. I mean, if we get half of what they do, imagine what we could do if we get half of what they do, which I think we really need to. We need to start holding people accountable, and I think as much as I hate Craig Foster, he said it once. He goes, "If you're going to wear that scarf and you're a politician, you need to start digging into your pockets, and we need to stop voting for these type of people that don't support the game." And I think we need to do that as a footballing community. We need to start doing that because we are well on the fund, and you can see some of the clubs are barely struggling. Like there should be women's changing rooms. The bare minimum of women's changing rooms. Like the girls should not be changing in the cars or behind, in the men's changing. They should have their own place to change. I think that's one. And then we should have a look at, facilities, making grounds not a dog park. That's a disgrace that we have, some grounds a dog park. But look, that's a conversation for another day. We're talking about results and we'll push on from there. The next one, Port Melbourne's misery continues. They hosted North Geelong Warriors. North Geelong winning 2-0 thanks to a goal from Kingsley Eshon in the 16th minute. And they did get another goal in the 91st minute by Angus Chapman. Look, North Geelong, they pick up some valuable points away, albeit against the bottom side. But, when you're in that, 2-game losing streak, you don't care who it is as long as you get those 3 points. And North Geelong got those 3 points.
yeah, no surprise here. It's Port Melbourne still really struggling to find their feet in this league again, and I honestly don't know when I will be predicting them to win a game. And I don't really think I will go down that path either. If I'm going to go for an upset, it won't be for Port Melbourne, that's for sure.
I
So
think they might win 1 or 2 games at least, but look,
I'm thinking you and I need to look at and do some digging in regards to what is the worst points total in a season ever for Victorian, like the top leagues at least, just to get a rough idea of how bad or benchmark is. Like this could potentially turn into like a Wolves in the Premier League. Arts. This is ridiculous.
it could be because the lowest last season, Melbourne Knights had 15 points, Port Melbourne had 17, and Melbourne Victory had 18. So that gives you an indication of it in
So look,
2024.
yeah. And do you think that can you see Port Melbourne getting 15 points this season?
No, I don't think so. I don't. I'm not just being honest. I don't think so that they will get 15 points.
Half of
Look,
that?
unless they get mid-season transfer, they get Neymar, Lionel Messi, and Ronaldo to play for them. I don't see them honestly getting 15 points. You might be right. They might be the lowest points
In danger.
tally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're in danger of it.
Um,
I
we
I that's what I would be looking at this season, Arts. I'd be trying to avoid that. I don't want to be a part of that history if I was at Port Melbourne. I think that series heads need to come together and they need to work really hard to try and get some results here. It's because 6 games in, 1 point minus 12 goals difference. It's that's screaming. Hand me a wooden spoon. Send me into the record books in the wrong sections, and let's look at VPL2 next season and potentially even, God knows what's going to happen there. Do you think they would even get relegated again? That's
Yeah.
another question.
Well, in 2024, Moreland City had 14, Manningham United 18, Green Gully had 24, but only 2 teams went down that season. In 2023, uh, Bentley had 15, North Geelong had 14, 2022, Dandy City had 20, Eastern Lions had 8.
Whoa,
So they had
that's ridiculous. Yeah.
5 draws, and 20 losses. So 8 points is so far the lowest
And
in
what's that?
this
What was the goal difference that season for that? For was it Eltham? You said
uh their season was
that season was minus what?
their goal difference 53 minus
Minus
53.
minus 53.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, they could be on. Oh, they could be on for that. That's 6 games minus 12. They could be close to minus 40 averaging, or if they continue to go like this, at least.
Yep. Well, in 2021, in the COVID era, we only played 18 games before it was called off. Dandenong City had 14 and St Albans had 10. Uh, 2020, we only managed to play 5 games. 2019, Kingston City 23-21. That's massive for a point in 2019. 2018, Bulleen Lions and Northcote had 21 and 22. So yeah, it looks like that 8-point margin.
Mm-hmm.
And negative 53. Back into 2017, St Albans had 15 and North Geelong had 10. So
We have
yeah,
a rough benchmark now, Art. So look, the way here's my perspective now. If you're Port Melbourne, you're probably hoping for another pandemic because
look,
so,
at the rate the
so
world's going,
yeah,
we
it
not,
might
might
be
not
there in
even
your
have
savior to staying into
we might
VPL1.
not even have football at the moment. But look, it's a long season, as they say. It could get even longer for Port Melbourne, but we'll move along. Uh, Manningham United 1, North Sunshine Eagles 0. So Manningham, Nick Marinos' side, winning 1-0 thanks to a Kane Shepherd goal in the 70th minute. So Manningham 3 wins on the trot after their 6-3 loss against Western United. And North Sunshine, a lot of red there. Just having a look at their games. They've lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've lost 6 in a row.
Yeah, but hold on, us. Let's be honest though. the teams they've played have been top sides.
Top
And
sides? You say top
except
sides,
maybe
did
all
you?
right, let's maybe
No,
we
no,
can
no,
take
no. I'm gonna hold you to it. So let's have a look.
besides
Lost one
Melbourne
0 to
Serbia. I was going to
Manningham.
say
I'll give
besides
you that. Northcote
Melbourne
City
Knights,
2-1.
Melbourne
Melbourne
Knights,
Serbia. Melbourne
Melbourne
Serbia
Knights, Melbourne Knights. Hold on,
3-2.
hold on. They most I said most of those games, right? Most of those games.
Sorry, my correction. The only win came against Lang Warren.
Yes, correct. So, but the thing is, look at their goal difference, -4. So they're only losing by a goal in every single one of those games. So they are very close, and against better sides, minus maybe Melbourne Serbia, Melbourne Knights. You can look at that. You can look at even Northcote City, where they probably should have got a point from that game. Even this game, it's 1-0
Should have,
lost,
would have,
70th
could
minute,
have, but
and
didn't.
but do you know what? I've got a good outcome right now. North Sunshine Eagles. I'll be covering their game on Saturday. And guess who they're playing? Port Melbourne. So
Hey. Let's just pump the brakes a little bit here, right? They're on a 5-game losing streak,
yep,
and you're playing Port Melbourne.
who are going for a record,
If
mate?
you lose to Port Melbourne, pack it up. Pack up the season. Play the kids. Let the under 23s and under 20s. Hey, even put in the under 16s if you have to. If you lose to Port Melbourne, you need to really just look at your players and go, right.
I don't see that happening.
Start
I don't know about
start
you.
cleaning the under 16 boots. You guys are not playing this weekend.
I don't see that happening. You got to
Look,
remember, it's like you got.
Chaos League. Chaos League.
You can say what you want, but I do think there's a process in what North Sunshine Eagles are trying to achieve. They have changed a lot of their players. You got to remember they lost a bunch of their starting players from last year to this year. You've brought in new signings, and it's taken a bit of time for them to find their feet. Yes, they've had big challenges. Yes, they have also lost those games, but they're in those matches, which is a positive sign.
It
It's a
doesn't matter.
massive positive, though. I
It
would
doesn't
rather
matter.
be
You're
in
not
North
winning
Sunshine
points. When
Eagles
you look at the
shoes.
ladder, does it tell you whether you're in the game or not? It tells you
Yeah,
win,
but 6
draws,
games. It's
losses,
6 games.
points.
It's 6 games. 6
Doesn't
games of
matter.
the season. I
You've
am gonna
lost
be
5 in a row.
happy
Is the
once we get
pressure on
on
the
a
coach?
Yes,
Is the
okay.
pressure on the
Pressure.
coach?
Yeah, of course. There's always every coach is gonna have pressure, regardless. If you're losing games, you're gonna have pressure. But it's how you respond, right? And I definitely see North Sunshine Eagles are going to respond. They're a top side. They're gonna
They've lost 5 in
it's
a row. 5 in a
I
row.
don't care if they've lost 5 in a row. It doesn't
How
bother
many
me that
would
they've
you
lost
care if
5.
they lost? If they lost 10 in a row, would you still say, I don't care?
Look, I'm looking at their games week by week. I'm assessing week by week. I know for a fact that they're going to get results. It's just a matter of when. And I do think this weekend is going to be the start to the turning point of their season. That's the way I see it.
All right. We've
It's the
asked the
Chaos League for a
questions.
reason.
We've asked the question. They're under the pump. You think no? I'm saying the coach is under the pump. If he loses to Port Melbourne this week, the bottom side, that's 6 in a row. Surely the questions need to be asked.
I mean, if any team's losing to Port Melbourne, you better be asking questions fast.
There
So
you go. I'm going to leave it at that. All right, we'll move on to the next game. Melbourne Serbia 1, Northcote 2. They got off to a good start. Melbourne Serbia, Ben Devine scoring in the 14th minute, but then Giorgio Sedenis and Casper Hallam scoring to make it 2-1. Northcote, the only side that is undefeated, 6 straight wins in the top division. They are looking very, very good, I think most people would have written them off at the start of the season. They would have thought a coach from Tasmania. He's brought over a lot of Tasmanians, but he's doing wonders for Northcote City, and they look unstoppable.
yeah, and Giorgio Sedenis again on the score sheet. Can someone call this guy up and find out what his routine is for training on scoring goals?
Look,
Because everyone needs to get on.
I wouldn't worry about his routine. I think teams at the bottom of the table in NPL, your
You're
green
calling this guy.
gullies,
If you're Green Gully, you're surely
I
calling Sir
would
Dennis.
I would go to, if I was a Green Gully interim coach or president, I would go and have a chat to this guy and go, how much do you want? I'll give you a goal bonus. Get us out of relegation now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
if I was one of those bottom 3 or 4 teams, I would go to him. I would go to also his other teammate, in I don't think no, sorry, it looked like the wrong team there. Sorry, my
you can for sure.
apologies.
Yeah,
Terry Swaby, I would
Swaby.
go to
Yep.
him. I would go to Georgia Sedenis and go, "Boys, you're gonna lead the line for Green Gully or Altona Magic or Dandy Thunder or Dandy City."
But
Probably not Dandy Thunder, I
you
think
can
they've
say all
got
this
enough
stuff, but I guarantee you, Northcote City are not going to sell these. They're not going to have any interest in getting rid of these guys.
money talks. Money
Yeah, but
talks,
Arts,
right?
I'm telling you, if you're
Hey,
Northcote City, you're going to pay more to keep them there so
you
that you're going to
but
make it up there.
money talks. Hey, you might get promoted, but then are you coming straight back down? Because we've seen a lot of teams going up and coming back down. You can keep
I,
Green
I
Gully.
understand where you're coming from, Arts. I do understand where you're coming from, but you got to remember, for players to entertain these offers, we're talking ridiculous money. And
Hey,
do you think that they're going to
NPL
get that
Victoria,
money? Because I
baby.
don't.
NPL Victoria. Players are turning down A-League contracts to stay in NPL. What is that telling you? The minimum average, I think, average wage is between $1,000 to $1,500 a week. That's NPL Victoria, and that's not even like your top tier players who are probably on 2 to 2.5. I've heard rumors,
Two,
allegedly,
and wait, you haven't even stopped.
allegedly.
Also, probably also have a car, by the way. They're given a car and all that. It's not just
Hey,
2,000. There's other things
hey,
involved.
Green Gully, they've got the money. They've got the money. They need the forwards. I would go to the Northcote to those boys and say, "How much do you want? You get us out of relegation. Hey, there's a nice couple of green Australian dollar notes there. Would you? You're in a position. Would you take it?
Well, if my club's name's Green Gully, you better hope that they have greens, Uts, because they're going to need
Well,
it to
they've
get
got the
these.
greens. I know that for a fact. They've got the greens. They've got greens.
They've
Those
got
poker
greens.
machines had definitely printing greens. But if you're one of those two boys at Northcote and Green Gully came knocking, how much would it take you to come across?
If it was me personally, if Northcote City are continuing to play this well, Uts, and they are going to go up, I wouldn't entertain the offer at all unless it was something.
Wouldn't entertain the offer.
Unless it was something ridiculous, like four,
What's
like two,
ridiculous?
it would have to be at least like 2,000 to 3 grand,
On a
two,
2 year
two to
contract, you
three
would 2 year contract, you would not take that.
per week.
On a 2 year contract, you would not take that.
I wouldn't entertain it personally.
You wouldn't entertain it. Oh
No,
my god.
I wouldn't.
That's I think you're full of shit. Let's just
Art, have you
two
seen Green
thousand
Gully at the
dollars a
moment?
week. You two
You got
thousand
to
dollars
remember,
a week.
you're going from a club that's in a winning position to a losing position, right?
Hey,
And it's not even that. There's
football
no
is
there's
not a
no
long term
leadership there,
game.
Art. It's I
Uh,
know, but if you're playing purely for money, then that's completely up to you. You ask me personally, that's my opinion. I want to win, bro. I don't want to go to a team and lose. That's
But
me.
you're going up you're gonna go up and you might come back down straight away. And you're
Uh,
stuck on the same contract. Whereas at least with Gully, you've got 2 years of 2 grand. So 26 weeks at 2 grand. We'll do the math. Definitely not going to be, hint, hint, wink, 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 wink. Not going to be uh, on the books. You're getting 52,000 over a 2 year period. You're telling me you wouldn't take that?
Look, it's like I said, me personally, I wouldn't entertain it unless the money was ridiculous, ridiculous. All right,
You just said 2 grand. You just said 2 grand.
I said 2 to 3 grand per week, right? That's per
Yeah,
week.
2 grand. All right, two. I'll give you 2 grand. I'm in Green Gully at the moment. I'll give you 2 grand. Would you come across?
Yeah, wait, that would
That's
hold on a sec. Hold on a sec. Arts, we're talking about entertaining the idea. If I was to entertain the idea, we would need to sit down and talk about certain things that need to be fixed, right?
like
I
what?
wouldn't just come. I wouldn't come into a squad that's struggling at the moment. I would want. I'd
Yeah, but you
obviously
could
want.
you could lift them off the ground. You could lift them off the ground. You can even put a goal bonus saying, "Look, if we stay up, I get 10 grand. We make finals, I get another five." You're telling me you could pocket almost 30 to 40 grand in a year, and you would
You
still
could look at it
stay.
like that. completely. I can understand where you're coming from. I can understand your view in terms of if you're looking at it just from a bonus or a cash perspective, a money making perspective, and that's the same probably the mindset that players are having from Europe going into Saudi Arabia. It's the same thing, right? Realistically, if you're going to get paid some ridiculous money, of course you're going to be like, I would entertain it. But me personally, I'm a winner. I want to win. If you want to look at money, sure, we can talk about it. But look, I want to know what structure is, what the goals are at the club, what's going to change. That's the thing. If I'm going to be talking about these clubs, if I want to be interested in moving across, how are you going to go from a first place side in VPL1 to a team that's bottom of NPL1, NPL Victoria? Sorry, it's yeah. Like I said, if they're gonna throw the money, sure, and players that are interested in that specifically, they will probably get them there. My problem is with 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 money in general arts, you can buy all the best players in the world, but if there's no chemistry, you're still going to struggle. So that's the bottom line.
Look, let us know in the comments if would you move for what amount of money would you take to move from VPL1 to NPL? Let us know in the comments. We'll kick things off the final game of round 6. It was Bulleen Lions 2 against Melbourne Knights 0. Big result for Bulleen. They, had a bit of a struggle. Their last win came against Port Melbourne. They had 2 losses and a draw, so good pick up there. Mateus Osumsao, the Brazilian, scoring 2 goals to get him back to winning ways. They did get a red card, Melbourne Knights, Mark Ocheng. That's probably a big loss for them. So that's something they definitely have to look out for going forward. But the Knights, though, probably a case of maybe just needed that loss. They were 4 straight wins in a row, looking quite good, and probably needed that, little kick up the bum to reset.
Yeah, I think you look at that game as well, and there was an early injury to Dante Conti and Mateus
Big loss.
Astomsau. Yeah, he came off. There was actually 2 changes. It was Cardillo from the bet. Jake Cardillo also came on for Reece Moxonnuts, and you thought at that point in the first half, oh geez, Bulleen having to deal with a few injuries. They picked up a couple yellows in the first half too, and then Mateus Astomsau, I was luckily enough to commentate North Sunshine Bulleen game last year, and he's a talented individual. He can really turn games on its head. And they've got the likes of Lucas Vaz there too now.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say
Bulleen
that. And
Lions,
then Connor
they've
Bell
got
as
quality
well.
arts. I was just saying they have good quality arts. They really, really have depth in quality there. And as of recent weeks, they've struggled to deliver those, I guess, the deliverables that the clubs would have expected of them to have. But it probably, Melbourne Knights also probably handed it to them, should I say, after Marco Chang did get the red. It made it almost 10 times difficult for them to come back in that game. And the 77th minute goal from Asa Smell to get the second goal, it really killed off that contest. And you know what, Bulleen said it for a few weeks. They struggled, but I could see the potential in that team to get wins. And this could be that game that lifts the spirits in the team. Probably gets them back to training on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. In positive spirits, that's the type of energy that you want to take into the next few weeks now. And 7 points from 6 games, not the ideal start for Bulleen, but they're starting to come good.
Yep. And the final game was between the 2 A-League sides, Melbourne Victory versus, there's no A-League, Western United, so apologies there. The no man's team, Western United, Melbourne Victory winning 2-1. First goal was John Radamisis in the 26th minute, and then Joseph de los Santos Miles scored in the 31st, and then in the 79th minute, Alex Lee made it 2-1. So good win for the Victory after a rough couple of weeks. They managed to pick up a very important win there.
Huge win, Utz. And I don't know if you recall last week when I was talking about it, but I did tell you that this was what I was expecting from Melbourne Victory. The Undertaker. I expected them to start pinching results. And yes, they're down from the bottom of the table at the moment, but they are rising and awakening to take wins. And what a win that was on the weekend against Western United, the former A-League Farmers Union, I'll call them probably. I don't know. What do you want to call them, Arts? So I guess that's a nice little starting point for them. But it's a good way to bounce back, Arts. Barisha and his Chargers now, they'll be happy, won't they, Arts?
They will be indeed. So good win for them. Looking at the ladder, Northcote on 6 straight, goal difference 12 on 18 points. Manningham, 5 wins, 1 loss on 7 goal difference on 15 points. Eltham Redbacks in third, 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss on 13 points. Brunswick Juventus, 4 wins, no draws, 2 losses, 5 goal difference on 12. Melbourne Knights, 4 wins, 2 draws on 12. North Geelong Warriors, the same. Then Western United, 3 wins, 3 losses on 9 points. Brunswick City, 2 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses on 7. Melbourne Victory is the same. Bulleen Lions is the same as well. Same goal difference as well. Lang Warren, 1 win, 1 draw, 4 losses on 4 points. North Sunshine Eagles, 1 win, no draws, 5 losses on 3. Melbourne Serbia is the same. Their -6 goal difference. And then Port Melbourne, no wins, 1 draw, 5 losses,
Arts,
-12, 1 point.
I hope you allow me to go through these matches because they are lipping beautiful games for the Chaos League this weekend.
Yep.
Friday
And it all
night.
starts Friday night.
Yep.
Brunswick City against Bulleen Lions. Who's your tip there?
I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I think there's going to be goals in this game, Arts, and I do think both sides will get something from this game.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I might go 1-1 draw. Next game, Melbourne Knights versus Northcote City. Another Friday night game at Thompson Stadium. Hopefully, Melbourne Knights can televise this game. Your picks?
Arts, that's a really good game, and I think it'll be probably Northcote City's biggest test of the season, going away to Melbourne Knights. Though I do think their run will come to an end here. I do think Melbourne Knights will take it 2-1.
Well, I'm going to go the opposite way. Mark O'Cheng out for Melbourne Knights. I think Northcote going to win 2-1, and the fence on the camera side will stay up this time, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Saturday, Manningham versus SC Melbourne Serbia at Petty's Reserve. I'm going to go Manningham 3-1 and pile on the misery to Melbourne Serbia.
Yeah, look, if you go into Petty's Reserve, you better get the Petty cash out, Arts, because Melbourne Serbia are going to struggle, I think, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 Manningham United win. Or
All
Manningham
right.
United, definitely for the 2-0.
Next one is North Sunshine Eagles versus Port Melbourne playing at Iron Park Fields. Do you know why they're playing there? Is their ground being redone?
Good question. Potentially that would be the case, I would assume. That might have been a late change. I didn't think it was going to be at Iron Park, but I guess it's there, and I
I know
guess after
the I know the Albanian couples played at Iron Park. Could North Sunshine be taking over
there could
uh,
be talks. I
Iron
might have to
Park
look into
Fields?
that. Down
Yeah,
at Leaks Road. Yeah, it's down in Leaks Road, so I'll have to have a look into that one, Arts. I didn't actually see that until now, so I'll be making the trip down to, I guess, Leaks Road to Ironbark Fields, pitch one.
yeah.
And I'd like to
Your
think
tip?
a 3-0 win.
3-0. Yeah, I'm going to go the same. I think it's going to be a big loss there for Port Melbourne. But if they win, come prepared next week, Arts. Come prepared. North Geelong
I might have to go
Warriors.
missing, mate.
North Geelong Warriors versus Eltham Redbacks. This is a tough game. North Geelong and Eltham Redbacks. Oh, I'm going to go Eltham 2-1.
Yeah, look, that's actually a very tough game. Both sides very much can win that one, Uts. I am going to predict a draw. I do think Eltham will get something from it. I'm going to go for a 1-1.
Well, interesting. Next game at Ironbark Fields. They should have just played 2 games on Ironbark. Would have made a bit
Would
of
be nice.
a football festival. Western United versus Brunswick Juventus. I am going for Brunswick Juventus to make it 3-1.
I mean, you always go for Brunswick Juventus anyway, Uts. So, um, well, I do think this one's going to be a 2-0 win for Brunswick Juventus.
All right, 2-0. Good call. And then Monday night, we have Melbourne Victory versus Langwarrin at the home of the
The
Matildas.
Matildas. Yep.
I am going to go Melbourne Victory 2-0.
Yeah, I will tend to agree with that one, Uts. I think, yeah, another sending off over the weekend for Langwarrin. Just cutting it very close with these available squads that they have. But look, it'll be interesting to see how they respond. I do think Malevich will get the best of them. I'm going to go for a 3-1 win.
Yep. All right. And now NPL, Bentley Greens versus Danny Thunder Friday night. I'm going to go on a Bentley 2-0. Actually, sorry, no,
Friday
hold on a
night.
second. Friday night, I'm gonna go a draw in this one, actually. 1-1.
So which game? The Bentley
Bentley
game?
Greens and Dandy Thunder
Dandy. Yeah.
1-1.
Yeah. So you're taking my Friday night stalemates. Hey, I've created that. No one's taking that away from me now. Yeah, look, Brentley Green's dandy. Uh, it's going to be. I actually look forward to that game. I do see two sides on the up after last week's results. You know what? This is a weird one for me. Why do I've had this gut feeling it's going to be a 0-0 game. I don't know why. I have this
It could very be.
I'm going to call 0-0. I'm going to call a 0-0 on the Friday night at
All right.
Kingston Hill. Yeah.
And the second game Friday night, that's the first. We usually have 3 or 4 games. Is Heidelberg against Melbourne City at Olympic Village. For me, Heidelberg will bounce back after this one. I think they're going to take it out 2-1.
2-1. That's a close game. Yeah. Look, I think they'll win more comfortably than that. I think they're going to go and win at 3-1 up. So I think they're going to want to respond after that loss away at St Albans, Dinamore. So I do think they're going to try and get a couple goals and pass out the burgers after the game.
The Suvlaki, get it right, nuts.
Good luck, yeah.
Saturday, we have a 2:00 kickoff. Interesting time. Hume City versus Preston Lions. I think this is a very big game. Both teams, in the top half of the table. Preston needing points to stay up with everybody else. It's a big field. I think Preston for me,
Yeah.
2-1.
Yeah, I do sense Preston. I was saying before about Hume City and they've been doing really well, but I think they're going to meet their match here, and I think Preston's actually going to go and beat them 2-1 as well. So it's going to be a tough one, but I do think Preston will come out on top on that one.
Yep, next game is Avondale versus Oakley Cannons at 3:00. That's going to be a good game at Avenger Park. Oh, this is a tough one to call, really. I feel like it's going to be a draw. I feel like it's just they're going to cancel each other out.
You reckon a draw?
Yeah,
What's
I think
happening now? You're taking my draws, mate. What's this?
I don't know. I'm just hacking into it. I don't think 2-2. I honestly think this is going to be one of those games. It's going to be a draw, either 2-2. I just can't pick them. They're both despite Avondale's loss last week.
Yeah.
Berkeley weren't convincing against George Cross. I think 2-2.
Yeah, I just don't see this game not having goals. Just both
Yeah,
sides.
yeah.
They just concede. They play very attacking football. So I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna go for an Avondale win here. I'm gonna go for a 2-1 Uts for Avondale.
Big call there. All right, the next game, which both you and I will be commentating, Caroline Springs George Cross versus St Albans Saints at 6 p.m. at City Vista. I'll be down there at 2:00 at the President's Luncheon. So if you happen to be going to the President's Luncheon, come say hello. We are doing interviews, so we can have a chat to you, or if you like, you can have a chat after the President Luncheon. But that's from 2 to 5 o'clock from memory. Come down and say hello. But we're on this game. What a game
Yeah.
this is going to be. They haven't played each other, I think, since 2012. Another interesting fact, the president of St Albans previously played for George Cross. He played, I think, 70-odd games over a 3-year period. So Ilya Dragicevic, I'm hoping he'll come down and I can have a chat to him. But this is a big game. Very hard to call, especially after St Albans win on the weekend and George is losing. How do you see this one?
I feel confident that George Cross at home will be too strong for St Albans Dinamo. I know that Dinamo on the road have struggled us. We've noted that between each other too. But look, they might come out rejuvenated after that win against Heidelberg. But I do think Callum Springs George Cross at home will just get and nick the result. I think they'll get a 2-1 win.
Yep, after being away for 3 weeks, I think the Georgie faithful will turn out and win. I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna stick my neck out there. 2-0 George Cross.
All
The
right.
fourth game Saturday night, Altona Magic versus Green Gully. Don't know who's coaching Green Gully, but 6:15 at Paisley Park. The odd kickoff time there. If Magic can't win this one, look, they solid performance against Melbourne City. Green Gully really struggling 4-0 loss against Bentley Greens. Who knows who's going to be coaching, whether they have the new coach bounce, as they call it. Magic have to win this game. I think Magic, for me, will be 1-0.
Oof, close one there. Yeah, look, Paisley Park down the road from my place. Obviously, we'll be at City Vista at that night. Not to really worry about this game, but I do think it'll be a draw. I think probably nil. Yeah, I'm going to go
Nil,
0-0.
nil all.
Yeah, nil or
Oh,
draw.
on a cold winter's day at Paisley Park and a 0-all draw. It's one of the worst commentary positions to be in, but nevertheless, that you picked. And playing on Tuesday, the 31st of March at Lakeside, South Melbourne versus Dandenong City. This is a tough game to call, really, because you don't know how it's going to go. You don't know which South Melbourne side will turn up. The one that turns up from the weekend turn up. I think Dandy City will do them, but it's hard to predict this game.
Is it just out of curiosity? Is the Tuesday night game because of the OFC,
Yep, yep.
or is
It
it?
gives them time to come back, I think.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. I thought maybe it had to do with like the booking on Lakeside Stadium because I know the NPL Women's Victoria game got cancelled over the weekend. So just making sure on that one. Yeah, look, I do think South Melbourne will bounce back, especially at Lakeside Stadium. I do think it's going to be another close one, though. Arts. I don't see them winning games comfortably with this OFC period. I'm going to go for a 1-0
To South Melbourne?
to South Melbourne. Correct.
Yep. Uh, I think Dandy City might pinch it 2-1. I don't know
Ooh,
why. I've just got,
that's an
got that
upset.
feeling. And, not necessarily an upset, but I think you don't know what side. It's hard to really predict these sides. Like when you feel like South should have won on the weekend, but they didn't. But then the previous weeks are winning, so it's really hard to predict. I'm just going to go Dandy City 2-1 there. So that is our picks. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Make sure you like and subscribe. Drop your comments and any comments you have about our podcast. We'd love to hear from you. We want to thank our major sponsor. Obviously, we couldn't have done it without them. Saint Domain Barbers at 15 Yarra Place, South Melbourne. Make sure you book your next hair appointment with them and let them know you're a friend of the podcast and they'll look after you. But Arts, thank you once again for another great review of football. Thank you to all those watching at home as well. We hope it's another big weekend. We know it is going to be. We hope your team wins, and we'll see you next week. Make sure you continue to follow us on all our socials, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, guys. All the best.